Alright, so this is just going to be a short video on assaulting a room. Now, if you've seen my previous video, it's actually the same room I'm going to be assaulting. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be assaulting through the downstairs area, just as an example. And it's in most cases, you will actually be assaulting this base from this angle. I know that usually I actually find that assaulting from this angle is perhaps the worst, but also the best on some aspects. Now, when assaulting a base, or even a room, or any sort of assault, really, you want to keep the idea of a front line blurred. You don't want to have a front line. Front lines means that you can have concentration of enemies, and if they're good at defending something, then they have the upper hand, and that should be applied to pretty much any sort of defense. If they have the upper hand, they will have the upper hand if there's a front line. They can have turrets, they can have things that are immobile, and be able to destroy any advances you have. While the people advances, they have to cross ground that may not have any cover behind. So you gotta keep when assaulting a base, you gotta keep that idea of a front line off. While defending a base, as I've said in my previous video, you gotta keep that front line. You gotta keep those rooms secure, those doorways. You gotta don't go past those doorways. That makes a front line right there. So pretty much you want to stop them from doing that. Now, in this example, I'm just going to be assuming that there's already plenty of turrets and everything in, and I'm just going to examples and principles here. So the first principle, as I've already mentioned, is to keep the IDs of frontline blurs. And if you're in light assault, actually, this is pretty much always the case, even if not assaulting, but as a light assault, that's pretty much what you should be doing. But in any case, when assaulting a room, try and be creative. Don't attack from the way they would be expecting. As I've said, they will be having, if they are good, they're going to have turrets right here, they're going to have turrets over here, and assaulting this room would be a nightmare. So you got to think and cover the places where they wouldn't normally expect you to come from. And if that means that if all your friends, if all your friendlies are attacking through here, through this particular doorway, that means that almost every single enemy will be attacking and defending that particular doorway. So you would want to come through here and go through this doorway here, or through this window. Maybe chuck a grenade in there, chuck a grenade through the window, chuck a grenade in here. Do all that. You gotta be creative when assaulting a base. Even if I say attack this room, max crash or something like that, you still got to be creative. You still got to think, right, everyone's going through this route, I'm just going to go a bit on this side and go around this side, go around through the back door kind of thing. And if everyone did that, that means that they would be under attack simultaneously from a dozen sides, through the windows, through the doors, through everything all at once. And that's usually how it should be. And under these situations, most defenses will actually crumble. There's just not enough bullets to distribute to all the attackers, if you want to look at it that way. There's just not going to be enough defenders. If you've got 10 people coming through here, 5 people coming through there, 20 people coming through down there, you're just going to get overwhelmed just by numbers. Just someone just rushing in, not even killing anyone, will actually contribute to that, because they will act as a meat shield for anyone that's behind you. So that's actually being creative is a big part of assaulting a room. Don't just follow the herd when assaulting a room. Follow, perhaps, if everyone was attacking A point, then yeah, go attack A point with those ones. Don't go attack C point unless you're an infiltrator. But otherwise, you should actually be being creative when it actually comes to actually assaulting the room. And actually, this applies to bases as well. In a base such as this, if you were coming out from the tech plant, for example, I would be expecting Sunders coming up here, hiding behind those rocks over here and over there. That's where they would expect to find Sunders, and that's where most people would go and look for Sunders. So go put a Sunder over there somewhere. Someplace that's not where you think it would be. Up there, over there, behind, go around, take a 10-minute drive to go all the way around the base and park it right behind it. Do something like that. And those Sunders, these are the ones that win bases. The ones that are just behind a rock, these are just farms for enemies. It's just so easy to set up a farm on a lone Sunder that's just have tons of people spawning on. if there was a Sandra behind this rock right now, if we had like 10 people here and 10 people on the spawns over there, we could just destroy that Sandra or farm it as we wished. So that's what it's really important to have more than one Sandra and more than one attacking points. And having those attacking points in places where they wouldn't expect, where they wouldn't think that there would be a Sandra there. And these are the good Sandra locations. A good Sandra location is not necessarily the one that's the closest to the point. In some cases it is, but in most cases it isn't. In most cases it is the place where your Sandra is the best. It's the best combination of close, of being in close proximity, but not being obvious, being somewhere you wouldn't expect. And sometimes somewhere you wouldn't expect is actually in the most obvious locations, because people would expect you to hide your Sandra. So one of the things you can use is against them is actually placing it someplace really obvious, like right behind that ammo tower, for example. You could place one there. Most people wouldn't even bother to look there. You would get on a fire, and eventually it would get recognized the moment someone queues it up. But the point I'm making here is placing your Sandras in some way that's not obvious and expected. An expected plan is almost always a failed plan, and that's really the main point into attacking a base. And I really can't stress this enough. And the other thing into attacking a base or attacking a point is having a group mentality, attacking one point at once. Sometimes attacking multiple points at once is best, and that is really up to the platoon leader to call out in which situation it is. But in most amount of situations you will ever be in, attacking one point at a time is the best. In certain games, it's actually called push. And it's pretty much just securing A point, and then B point, and then C point. And you make sure that A point is secured and cleared. You don't just secure it and just leave, knowing that there's 10 guys sitting right behind the wall just waiting for you to leave. And usually you do that in order from the one furthest away from the spawns, or from the teleporter, to the one the closest. Because as an enemy, the enemies will automatically rush to the point the closest to them. Humans are lazy, attackers are lazy, people will do that. They will automatically hone to the closest point. So if you go and secure the one furthest away, that means that you're going to have one point that's almost always going to stay in your hands. In the Crown, for example, there's a point down here. That is a long far away, and people don't usually go immediately for that point on that bridge on the first thing they do. That's not usually something that they do. They usually go for the closest point. So you got to keep that in mind when attacking a base. So in that aspect, you actually got to stick with the group. If everyone's heading to a point, stick with that group and make sure that that group is heading to the furthest away point, and then heading inside, getting closer and closer to the spawns or to the teleporters, or whichever one you think they're most likely going to use to use. So that's really on how to actually defend and how to attack a base. And you actually got to be really creative. Platoon leaders or squad leaders. Platoon leaders will usually just say attack a room or do a gal drop or do a max crash. That's usually what they call out. Most platoon leaders don't micromanage. Usually they leave that up to the squad leaders. Usually it's up to the squad leaders to actually say, head to this point first, do this first, do that, do this. They're the ones that should be micromanaging their actual squads. And if that is done properly, then you have a whole hierarchy of people doing exactly the right thing. And that's really on a good way of doing that. There's really not much else to attacking a base, really. You can always, use your imagination, really. The reason, if I can think of something, and you can, that means that you're gonna have an upper hand over me, pretty much. So make sure that when you're attacking a base, when you're attacking a tech plant, people always do the same thing when attacking a tech plant. They always go for the generators first, and then from the generators they push through the back door where the grav lifts are to the gun deck. They usually push always through those back doors up and into a point, and they always do that. Make something different. put a galaxy up on the Jesus spot. Go and attack the gun deck and go down those graveletters there. Do something that they don't expect. Throw them off their game. Even if that something is something that's going to be completely and utterly useless in the actual attacking in the base. If you were to attack this point, then they would expect you to attack this point. So go on this bridge, for example, and stay on that bridge. Cover this bridge. They wouldn't be expecting that. They would expect you to defend a point. So make something creative. Go someplace where they don't expect you. And I really can't stress this enough. That is really one of the major things that wins a base, is that surprise. So make sure that next time you attack a base, be creative. Don't do the same thing over and over again. People learn. If you get killed by the same person 3 or 4 times consecutively, means that you haven't done something. That's on a small scale, but that actually applies to bigger groups. And so I think I've done this point enough, really. But I mean, yeah. And don't always do the same thing. Don't get in a routine. Don't get in a habit of doing the exact same thing. I can't. This is the worst thing you could ever do as a platoon leader, perhaps, while attacking a base. That was Necronox, actually, and that was on how to attack a room in a base. And for those that haven't really paid attention, these are summaries. Be creative when attacking base. Be creative. Don't always do what they expect you to do. Surprise them, throw them off their game. Do something that's out of the ordinary. They're just gonna go wondering what the hell you are doing, even if it's something that is completely pointless in terms of attack. But just throwing them off their game means that they don't know what to expect anymore. So the moment they don't know what to expect, that means that anything you do pretty much will be a surprise to them, and that's a good attack. That would be really nice. If every attack I did was like that. However, it doesn't always turn like that. Sometimes it just falls straight down to grunt power. And when attacking a room, I'm just going to cover this point quickly before I finish. When attacking a room, throw grenades and then attack. There should be about a 5 second or 2 or 3 seconds where everyone just throws grenades. You throw grenades through all the walls, through all the windows, doors, any waypoint, any place where you could possibly fit a grenade through. Chuck it in through there. And that means that there's going to be mayhem inside the room. There's going to be bombs going off everywhere, smokes, concussion grenades, everything's going to be gone. It's going to be mayhem inside. And then you rush in. Because those concussions grenades, those smokes will give you cover. They will be firing blind, and if not, just the explosions will just be throwing them off. They would have moved. They would have got a tower getting off your grenade. If you put a well-placed grenade, they would have spread out from there. So they would have broken their line of defense from there. So make sure that when you're attacking a room, you have those 2 or 3 seconds of heavy grenade fire, of chucking grenades. If you've got heavy assaults, you should be running with bandolier or grenade pouch, I think it's actually called, and chuck 2, 3 grenades inside, and chuck them in different places. Don't chuck them all in the same place. I suppose you can. There's going to be so many grenades, but make sure that you throw grenades and then attack. That would cause a lot of mayhem. That was Necronox, and I hope you liked this video and hope it's helpful, actually.